Unverified because you won't let anyone verify them. Hannah shouted, her frustration boiling over. People's minds are being altered right now while we talk. Kim Jun nodded to security. Two men in dark suits approached the podium. This is exactly why I came here, Hannah said, gripping the sides of the podium as the security guards reached for her arms. You're all being influenced already. The contamination is spreading. As they pulled her away from the microphone, she struggled against their grip. You'll regret ignoring me. When people start changing, remember I warned you. The security guards dragged her toward the exit. Hannah's tablet fell to the floor, images of the microorganisms still displayed on the big screen. The water is being poisoned, she screamed as the doors closed behind her. Someone in the audience was recording with their phone. Within hours, the video was online, quickly going viral with the caption, "Crazy Karen Scientist Meltdown at Global Science Council." People around the world watched and laughed at the seemingly deranged scientist being dragged away while shouting about contaminated water and mind control. Director Lee called Hannah the next morning to inform her she was suspended pending a mental health evaluation. Her lab was closed, her samples confiscated, her research computer locked. What no one knew, what Hannah herself didn't know, was that she was right. In a sleek building across Seoul, three figures watched the viral video of her meltdown on a large screen. They appeared human but moved with strange precision. Their eyes reflected light oddly. The park female was more perceptive than anticipated, the tallest one said. Yes, but now she is discredited, another replied. The humans have done our work for us. They mock her with their Karen label. The water distribution program can continue as planned, the third added. Phase 1 is nearly complete. The beings, representatives of the mock collective from a distant star system, turned off the screen. They had spent years preparing for this subtle invasion. No weapons, no ships in the sky, just microscopic infiltrators that would make humans compliant when the time came. Their only threat had been a dedicated scientist who noticed what no one else had. Now she was ruined, her reputation destroyed, her warnings turned into internet entertainment. The mock representatives smiled with their almost human faces. Earth's best defense against them had been neutralized, and humans had done it themselves. 3 months after her public humiliation, Hannah huddled in the cold basement of an abandoned pharmaceutical laboratory outside Busan. The building had been closed years ago after a company bankruptcy, making it perfect for her needs. No one came here anymore except stray cats and occasionally Taeho. Rain beat against the small windows near the ceiling as Hannah adjusted her microscope. She had stolen this equipment piece by piece from university storage rooms and second-hand shops. Nothing matched. Nothing was state-of-the-art, but it worked. A door creaked open upstairs. Hannah grabbed the heavy wrench she kept nearby and listened. The footsteps were familiar. "It's just me," called Taeho as he descended the stairs. He carried a box of supplies and a bag of food. "I brought Raymond and some equipment from the university lab." Dr. Taeho Kim had been Hannah's brightest student 5 years ago. Now he was an assistant professor at Busan National University. He was risking his career by helping her. "No, I was careful." Taeho set down his box. "I brought those brain tissue samples you wanted." Hannah nodded. "Good. I think I'm close to understanding how these things work." Her makeshift lab was organized chaos. Tables were covered with equipment, notebooks, and water samples collected from different parts of the country. On one wall, she had pinned newspaper articles and screenshots of government announcements. Red string connected various points, looking like the work of a conspiracy theorist. "People think I'm crazy," Hannah said, noticing Taeho looking at her wall. "But the evidence is there if you know where to look." Taeho unpacked the equipment. The university is different now. New security protocols, mandatory health screenings, and people seem off. "How so?" "They're too agreeable." Even Professor Yang, who argued about everything, now just nods and goes along with whatever the administration wants. Hannah wasn't surprised. It's happening faster than I thought. She led Tai-Ho to her microscope and showed him slides of the microorganisms. I've been testing them with various brain tissue samples. Watch what happens when I play this. She turned on a small speaker that emitted a pattern of sounds barely audible to human ears. Under the microscope, the microorganisms became more active, pulsing rhythmically. They respond to specific frequency patterns, Hannah explained. The same patterns I've identified in government broadcasts, emergency alerts, even some popular songs suddenly getting airtime. Tai-Ho looked shocked. What do they do to brain tissue? Hannah brought up images on her laptop. These are scans from lab rats exposed to contaminated water for 2 weeks. The images showed strange neural pathways forming. These new connections make the brain more receptive to external suggestion, especially when accompanied by those same frequencies. Mind control. Tai-Ho whispered. Not exactly. More like influence, reduced questioning, increased compliance. Hannah rubbed her tired eyes. People still think they're making their own decisions, but their choices are being guided. By whom? Hannah hesitated. I don't know for certain, but these organisms aren't natural. They're engineered, and not with any technology I recognize. Tai-Ho sat down heavily. You really think it's non-human? I think something or someone is preparing Earth for something big, and they're doing it by literally getting into our heads. She showed him more data, explaining how the contamination had spread to most major water systems in Korea and was likely worldwide now. Government testing wouldn't detect these organisms because they were programmed to become dormant when exposed to standard testing methods. The good news, Hannah said, moving to another table, is that I've developed this. She held up a test tube with clear liquid. It disrupts the microorganism's cellular structure without harming human tissue. 1 drop can cleanse a liter of water, but making enough of it requires industrial equipment. What equipment? Specifically, the kind they have at Seoul's Biotechnology Center. Tai-Ho stared at her. You can't be serious. That place has military-grade security. I worked there for 7 years. I know the layout, the security protocols. Hannah's eyes gleamed with determination. And I still have friends there, people who were exposed to my countermeasure before I was discredited. For the next week, they planned carefully. Hannah created fake IDs and security cards. Tai-Ho memorized the building layout and security rotation schedules. They would have exactly 23 minutes to access the main production lab, synthesize enough of the countermeasure, and escape. On a rainy Friday night, they approached the Biotechnology Center in a borrowed maintenance van. Hannah wore a cleaning service uniform. Tai-Ho was dressed as its support. Remember, Hannah whispered as they approached the side entrance, if we succeed, we can mass-produce the countermeasure and distribute it through the water systems. The first part of their plan worked perfectly. Hannah's fake cards got them inside. Her old colleague Minji, whose water Hannah had secretly treated months ago, looked the other way as they slipped into the main laboratory wing. In the production lab, Hannah worked quickly, entering the formula into the automated synthesis system. Tai-Ho kept watch, nervous but steady. 10 more minutes, Hannah said as the machine hummed. Then we'll have enough to start treating the main reservoirs. That's when the alarms went off. Red lights flashed throughout the facility. Heavy security doors began to close automatically. Someone reported us, Tai-Ho said, panic in his voice. The luminescence grew brighter, now filling the courtroom with its glow. Fine particles began to drift from Hannah's skin into the air, caught in the circulation system's currents. Stop the air systems, someone shouted, but it was too late. The glowing particles spread throughout the courtroom. As they drifted past people's faces, something remarkable began to happen. Judge Da-hyun was the first. He blinked rapidly, then pressed his hands against his temples. The cloudiness in his eyes began to clear, like fog burning away in sunlight. He stared at Hannah with sudden clarity. I can think clearly, he whispered. What was happening to me? Prosecutor Suk was next. She had been mid-stride toward Hannah when the particles reached her. She froze, then clutched her head, dropping to one knee. "My thoughts. They're mine again," she said, looking around in confusion. "For months, I've been. What have I been doing?" All around the courtroom, people began reacting similarly. The bailiff, a man named Min, suddenly stared at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "What have I been doing?" he whispered, horror creeping into his voice as memories of his recent actions returned to him with new clarity. Jurors stood up, looking confused and frightened. Reporters touched their faces, their cameras temporarily forgotten. The guards lowered their weapons, uncertainty replacing their stern expressions. Hannah remained at the center, the blue glow still emanating from her skin. "The microorganisms affected your neural pathways," she explained, her voice carrying in the stunned silence. "They made you susceptible to suggestion from specific frequency patterns, the ones broadcast in government communications, emergency alerts, even certain popular songs." Judge Dahyun stepped down from the bench, moving closer to Hannah. His eyes were now completely clear. "You were telling the truth all along," he said quietly. "We thought you were insane." "Not insane," Hannah replied. "Just the only one who could see what was happening. The compound I just released destroys the microorganisms and eliminates their effect on brain function. You're free now, free to think for yourselves again." Outside the courtroom, chaos was erupting. The live broadcast had shown everything. Millions of viewers had witnessed the transformation. In homes and offices across the country, people stared at screens in shock as government officials and legal authorities admitted to being unknowingly influenced. Cameras zoomed in on Hannah's glowing form. She looked directly into them, knowing this was her chance to reach everyone. "This is happening worldwide," she said clearly. "Unknown to us, an alien presence has been slowly taking control of human minds through our water. The clouding of thought has been so gradual that most never noticed. Those who did notice were dismissed as crazy, like I was." In the courtroom, Prosecutor Suk had recovered enough to approach Hannah. Her face showed a mix of horror and admiration. "How did you resist the influence?" she asked. Hannah smiled. "I discovered it early and developed a personal countermeasure. I've been drinking filtered water treated with a preliminary version of this compound for months." The doors to the courtroom burst open. Security officers rushed in, but stopped short when they saw the scene, and when the glowing particles reached them. One by one, they too began to wake from their mental fog. Tae-ho made his way to Hannah's side. "It's working across the city," he told her. "Our network released the compound into 7 water treatment plants simultaneously, just as you instructed. The awakening has begun." On the screens around the courtroom, breaking news alerts showed similar scenes unfolding in government buildings across Seoul. Officials were stumbling, holding their heads, their eyes clearing as the microorganism's influence was destroyed. "There will be resistance," Hannah warned, the glow around her beginning to fade. "The beings behind this, the mock collective, won't surrender their plan easily." As if on cue, the building's power flickered. Emergency broadcasts began playing on all channels, emitting the specific frequencies that had strengthened the microorganism's hold. But now, with Hannah's compound spreading, the broadcasts had no effect. Judge Dahyun straightened his robes with new determination. "Dr. Park, this court finds you not guilty by reason of necessity, as you claimed. Furthermore, I am ordering your immediate release and the formation of a special task force under your direction to combat this invasion." Hannah nodded, the glow now just a faint shimmer on her skin. She turned to face the cameras again. "Did anyone follow you?" Hannah asked. She had lost weight, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Hannah grabbed the first batch of countermeasure from the machine. "We have to go now." They ran for the emergency exit, but it was too late. Security forces poured into the hallway, blocking their escape. Leading them was Officer Ji-woo, whose stern face Hannah recognized from news broadcasts about increased security measures. "Dr. Park," Ji-woo called out, his voice flat and emotionless. "You are under arrest for terrorism and biological sabotage." Hannah noticed his eyes, slightly clouded, pupils fixed at an unnatural size. The same look she had seen in rats after prolonged exposure to the microorganisms. "Your mind is compromised," she called back. "All of you are being influenced." Jiwoo's face showed no reaction. "Drop what you're holding and place your hands on your head." Taeho looked at Hannah desperately. She made a split-second decision, throwing the vial of countermeasure into the air return vent above them. It shattered, releasing the solution into the building's air system. "What did you just do?" Jiwoo demanded as his officers surrounded them. Hannah smiled for the first time in months. "I just gave everyone in this building a fighting chance." As handcuffs were snapped around her wrists, Hannah whispered to Taeho, "They'll take me to court. That's where Phase 2 begins." Officer Jiwoo pushed her forward, unaware that within hours, the countermeasure would begin clearing his own mind of the alien influence. Unaware that Hannah's arrest was exactly what she had been planning all along. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity on the first day of the trial. News agencies from around the world had sent reporters. The case of Dr. Hannah Park, once Korea's most respected xenobiologist and now its most notorious conspiracy theorist, had captured global attention. Hannah entered wearing an orange prison jumpsuit, her hands and feet in restraints. She had lost more weight during her month in detention. Her hair, once perfectly maintained, was now cut short and uneven. But her eyes remained sharp and alert, scanning the courtroom carefully. Judge Dahyun sat at the bench, his stern face betraying no emotion. Hannah immediately noticed the slight cloudiness in his eyes, the telltale sign of microorganism influence. She saw the same cloudy look in most of the courtroom officials and many journalists. Prosecutor Suk, a sharp-featured woman in her 50s, stood ready at her table. She had built a reputation for winning difficult cases. Today, she seemed especially confident. "All rise," called the bailiff. As the proceedings began, Hannah spotted several familiar faces in the audience. Taeho sat near the back. Next to him was Minji from the Biotechnology Center. There were others too, former colleagues, students, and friends, all people who had been exposed to small doses of her countermeasure over the months. They formed a silent network, waiting for her signals. "The state calls this an open and shut case," Prosecutor Suk began, her voice carrying through the courtroom. "Dr. Park broke into a government facility, attempted to contaminate research materials, and has been spreading dangerous misinformation that threatens public safety." Hannah sat quietly, seemingly resigned to her fate. In reality, she was counting the air vents in the courtroom, noting the positions of the cameras broadcasting the trial. "These accusations are absurd," Prosecutor Suk continued, pacing before the jury. "Dr. Park clearly suffers from paranoid delusions. She believes aliens are controlling our minds through water." Laughter rippled through the courtroom. She was once a respected scientist, but now she is a danger to herself and others. Hannah's lawyer, a court-appointed young man named Jun Seo, seemed uncomfortable and unprepared. Hannah had refused to work with him on her defense, telling him simply to trust her. "My client pleads not guilty by reason of necessity," Jun Seo stated awkwardly when it was his turn to speak. Judge Dahyun frowned. "Necessity is not a standard plea, counselor. Dr. Park insists that her actions were necessary to prevent greater harm," Jun Seo explained, glancing nervously at Hannah. The judge sighed. "Very well. The court notes the unusual plea." As the prosecution presented its case, it became clear they had overwhelming evidence against Hannah. Security footage showed her breaking into the Biotechnology Center. Witnesses testified about her erratic behavior at the Global Science Council meeting. Former colleagues spoke about her growing paranoia in the weeks before that incident. Throughout it all, Hannah remained strangely calm. She wrote notes occasionally and passed them to her lawyer, who looked increasingly confused by her instructions. Mirror systems in reverse cycle create barriers to influence. 30 parts per million is sufficient. When birds fly south, look to northern lights for guidance. The color blue marks safe passages. By the end of the day, Tahoe and the others had pages of notes. Her seemingly random statements provided exact instructions for producing and distributing the countermeasure, warnings about when the alien influence was strongest, and contingency plans if she was convicted. As she was led from the courtroom, Hannah glanced at the news cameras one last time. "Tomorrow," she said clearly, "truth will explode into light." That evening, as guards returned her to her cell, one of them, a young woman whose eyes were clear, slipped a small capsule into Hannah's hand. "From Tahoe," the guard whispered, "for tomorrow." Hannah smiled as she carefully hid the capsule in her cheek. Everything was going according to plan. The courtroom would be filled with officials, media, and spectators. All the major networks would be broadcasting live. It would be the perfect stage for what came next. That night, as the nation slept, Tahoe's network moved into action across the city, preparing for what Hannah had coded as the illumination. The final day of the trial arrived with an air of grim certainty. Everyone in the courtroom knew how this would end. Dr. Hannah Park, once respected scientist, now deemed dangerous and delusional, would be sentenced to years in a high-security prison. The jury had deliberated for less than 2 hours before reaching their verdict, guilty on all counts. Judge Dahyun adjusted his glasses and looked down at Hannah with what seemed like pity. His eyes remained cloudy, unfocused in that peculiar way that only Hannah and her small network recognized as a sign of alien influence. "Dr. Park, the jury has found you guilty of terrorism, breaking and entering, attempted sabotage of government property, and inciting public panic. Before I pronounce your sentence, do you have any final statement you wish to make?" The courtroom was packed. Every major news outlet had cameras rolling. Millions watched the live stream around the world. In the back row, Tahoe nodded slightly to Hannah. Their network was in position throughout the city. Hannah rose slowly. She looked thin and tired in her prison jumpsuit, but her eyes burned with intensity. "Your Honor, I do have something to say." Her voice was calm, clearer than it had been throughout the trial. "Before you sentence me, I would like to demonstrate something for the court." Judge Dahyun frowned. "This is not the time for demonstrations. Dr. Park, please limit yourself to a statement." "This will only take a moment," Hannah said, stepping forward. "And then everyone will understand why I did what I did." Before the guards could stop her, Hannah bit down hard on something hidden in her cheek. There was a tiny cracking sound as the capsule broke between her teeth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Hannah's skin began to change. A faint blue glow appeared first on her face, then spread rapidly across her exposed skin. Within seconds, her entire body was emitting a soft, blue-white luminescence. "Restrain her," shouted Prosecutor Sook, jumping to her feet. "She's exposed something dangerous." 2 guards moved toward Hannah, but stopped, uncertain. The glow wasn't hurting her. Instead, Hannah looked strangely peaceful as the light grew stronger. "What's happening?" gasped Judge Dahyun, rising from his seat. "What have you done?" "I'm exploding with truth," Hannah replied calmly. The blue-white light pulsed from her skin in gentle waves. "This compound is perfectly harmless to humans. It's catalyzing with the microorganisms in your bodies, the ones I've been warning about." "You didn't offer anything," she said firmly. "You took without asking. That's not guidance, it's invasion." The mock's skin rippled with colors that seemed to indicate frustration. "We underestimated your resistance, particularly yours, Dr. Park. Your mind proved exceptional." "Not exceptional," Hannah replied. "Just stubborn." "What happens now?" The lead mock gestured toward the equipment around them. "We will depart. Our method has been exposed. This attempt at integration has failed." "And will you try again?" Hannah asked. The mock was silent for a moment. "Perhaps. In time. When your species has forgotten this encounter." "We won't forget," Hannah said with certainty. and we'll be watching the water." As the Mock prepared to leave Earth, Hana ensured their technology was documented and their methods understood. The countermeasure continued to spread worldwide, freeing minds and revealing the few remaining Mock who had tried to hide among humans. Within weeks, the last traces of the alien microorganisms had been eliminated from Earth's water. The Mock ship, hidden beneath Lake Suwa, rose through the water and into the sky, observed by millions as it departed. Hana watched it go from the shore of the lake, Taiho at her side. "Do you think they'll really stay away?" he asked. "No," Hana replied honestly. "But next time, we'll be ready." In the months that followed, Hana became a global leader in the new field of xenobiological defense. The woman once mocked as Crazy Karen now headed an international organization dedicated to protecting Earth from subtle invasion. The courtroom video of her explosion, the moment when she had released the glowing compound and begun to free humanity, became the most viewed clip in internet history. Children dressed as glowing Hana for Halloween. Her stubbornness, once considered her greatest flaw, was now celebrated as the quality that had saved humanity. At the one-year anniversary of what became known as the Revelation, Hana stood before the United Nations. Representatives from every country on Earth watched as she unveiled a new global water monitoring system. The Mock taught us an important lesson. She told the assembly, "Sometimes, the most dangerous threats aren't the ones that come with explosions in armies. Sometimes they slip into our lives unnoticed, changing us so gradually that we don't realize what we've lost until it's almost too late." She activated the monitoring system with a touch of her hand. "Today, we ensure that no one, human or alien, can ever again use our most basic necessity against us. Water sustains us. Now we ensure it remains truly ours." As the crowd rose in applause, Hana smiled slightly. She had never wanted fame or recognition. She had simply seen something wrong and refused to be silenced about it. The stubborn, demanding perfectionist, once nicknamed Karen, had saved the world by being exactly who she was, someone who wouldn't back down, even when everyone thought she was crazy. Retriclaude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. "I have to," Hana replied. "This started with my discovery. It needs to end with me understanding exactly what we're dealing with." 4 hours later, Hana led a team of 20 scientists and Special Forces soldiers toward Lake Suwa. Satellite imagery had revealed unusual thermal patterns beneath the lake's surface, a structure that shouldn't exist. As their vehicles approached the lake, they saw it was unnaturally still, its surface like glass despite the wind. And it glowed faintly with the same iridescence as Mock's skin. "They've activated something," Hana said, studying the water. "Everyone, put on your protective gear." They donned the special suits Hana had designed, which included filters to prevent any contact with potentially contaminated water. The soldiers readied weapons loaded with capsules of Hana's compound rather than bullets. As they reached the shore, the lake's surface began to ripple. Then, in an impossible display of physics, the water parted, revealing a sloping tunnel leading beneath the lakebed. "They're inviting us in," Taiho whispered. "Or it's a trap," countered the Special Forces leader. Hana studied the opening. "It's both. They know they've lost this round. They want to negotiate." She started walking toward the tunnel. "Dr. Park," called one of the soldiers, "we should send drones first." "No time," Hana replied without stopping. They could close this entrance at any moment. The team followed her down the sloping tunnel. The walls were smooth, made of some material that seemed partly organic, glistening with moisture. Lights pulsed along the ceiling, guiding them deeper. After walking for what seemed like kilometers, they emerged into a vast chamber. The space was filled with equipment unlike anything human science had created. Pools of luminescent liquid dotted the floor, and standing in the center were 3 Mock. They were taller than humans, with long limbs that moved with unsettling grace. Their skin shifted colors as they watched the humans approach. "Dr. Hana Park," one of them spoke, its voice resonating strangely. The one who saw through our methods. Hannah stepped forward, unafraid. You've been influencing our species for years, preparing us for what? Integration, replied the Mach. Your species has potential but lacks direction. We would have guided you to greatness. By removing our free will, Hannah challenged. By removing your tendency towards self-destruction, the Mach corrected. Your history is filled with violence, waste, and short-sightedness. We offered a better path. One of the soldiers raised his weapon, but Hannah gestured for him to wait. Dr. Hannah Park sat alone in her lab on a rainy Tuesday night. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. She rubbed her tired eyes and looked again through her microscope. The water sample from Sol's main reservoir was unlike anything she had ever seen before. This can't be right, she whispered. The microorganisms moving under her lens didn't match any known species. They were too perfect, too uniform. Most concerning was how they responded to human tissue samples. They seemed drawn to them, attaching and then changing in subtle ways. Hannah had been working at the Korean Institute for Advanced Sciences for 15 years. She was the top xenobiologist in the country, perhaps in all of Asia. Her colleagues respected her work but found her difficult to deal with. She demanded perfection from herself and everyone around her. This had earned her the nickname Karen behind her back, something she pretended not to know about. She took photos through the microscope and carefully documented everything. This was her third sample showing the same results. Something was in Sol's water, and nobody was listening to her. The next morning, Hannah marched into Director Lee's office without knocking. I have proof now, she said, dropping her folder on his desk. The water supply is contaminated with unknown microorganisms. We need to alert the public immediately. Director Lee sighed. He was tired of Hannah's intensity. Dr. Park, we've been through this. 3 separate departments have checked the water. It meets all safety standards. They're checking for known contaminants. This is something new. Something. Not from here. Director Lee's eyebrows rose. Not from here. Are you suggesting alien contamination, Dr. Park? I'm suggesting we can't identify it, which means we need to be cautious. Do you hear yourself? This is why people find you difficult to work with. He handed the folder back without looking at it. Take a few days off. You're overworked. Hannah didn't take time off. Instead, she gathered more samples and ran more tests. The microorganisms seemed to multiply faster when exposed to certain radio frequencies, the same frequencies used by government communication systems. This couldn't be a coincidence. After a week of being ignored by her superiors, Hannah took a bold step. She requested to speak at the Global Science Council meeting being held in Seoul. As a department head, she had the right to present urgent findings. The day of the meeting arrived. Hundreds of scientists and government officials from around the world filled the large conference room. Hannah wasn't scheduled until late in the day. She sat nervously, clutching her presentation materials. When her turn finally came, she walked to the podium with determination. Kim Jun, the head counselor, introduced her with visible reluctance. Dr. Park will present her. Concerns about water quality. Hannah connected her tablet to the display system. Images of the strange microorganisms appeared on the large screen behind her. What I've discovered in Seoul's main water reservoir should concern us all, she began. These microorganisms don't match any known species. They respond to human tissue and certain radio frequencies in disturbing ways. Murmurs filled the room. She continued showing her evidence, her voice growing more urgent. Most troubling is how they affect brain tissue. They create changes that could potentially make human minds more susceptible to suggestion. I believe. Kim Jun interrupted her. Dr. Park, these claims are extraordinarily serious. Where are the peer-reviewed studies? I've tried to get others to verify my work, but no one will listen. That's why I'm here. We need an emergency investigation. The murmurs in the room grew louder. Hannah saw people shaking their heads, whispering behind their hands. Please, she said, her voice rising. This could be an intentional contamination. These microorganisms could be designed to affect human behavior. We need to shut down the water supply until... That's enough, Kim Jun said firmly. We will not cause public panic based on unverified claims. On the third day of the trial, Hana was called to testify. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She knew the trial was being broadcast worldwide. Millions of people would hear her words. She took the stand and was sworn in. Prosecutor Suk approached with a predatory smile. Dr. Park, you were once considered brilliant in your field. What happened? Hana looked directly at the camera rather than at Suk. Perception shifted when observation revealed anomalies outside expected parameters. Suk looked confused. Please answer the question directly. I am. When water carries unexpected passengers, reality bends in ways most cannot see. The prosecutor turned to the judge. Your Honor, the defendant is being deliberately obtuse. Dr. Park, Judge Da-hyun warned, please answer questions clearly or you will be held in contempt. Hana nodded. Clarity comes at 310 nanometers. That's when water meets light and truth becomes visible. In the audience, Tai-ho made a small note. He understood what she was saying. The 310 nanometer wavelength was the UV light frequency that activated the most powerful version of her countermeasure. He would pass this information to their network. Let's be more specific, Suk said with growing frustration. You claim our water contains alien microorganisms that control minds. Do you have any proof that would stand up to scientific scrutiny? The proof dissolves when traditionally examined, Hana replied. Like sugar in hot tea, influence spreads through systems unseen by conventional observation methods. Spectators began to whisper. She sounded crazy to most of them, exactly as she intended. But to her network, each strange statement contained specific instructions. When truth carriers move through the 7 major streams, awakening begins within 1 lunar cycle, she continued. Tai-ho made another note. 7 major streams, the 7 water treatment plants serving Seoul. They needed to introduce the countermeasure within the next month. Prosecutor Suk was getting angry now. Your Honor, the defendant is clearly not mentally fit to stand trial. I am perfectly fit, Hana countered calmly. The question is whether those with clouded vision can recognize clear water. She pointed directly at the judge's eyes, a gesture caught on camera. The cloudedness is the evidence, Your Honor. It's in your eyes right now. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Judge Da-hyun instinctively touched near his eyes. Order, he demanded, banging his gavel. One more outburst like that, Dr. Park, and you will be removed from this courtroom. Hana smiled. Removal only spreads the message further. Like ripples in water, truth cannot be contained once released. Her cross-examination continued for hours. To most observers, she appeared to be rambling incoherently, confirming the prosecution's claim about her mental state. But throughout her testimony, she continued embedding coded messages for her network. The frequency plays on government channels between midnight and 4. Block your ears or filter your water during those hours. To everyone watching who just saw what happened here, you're not hallucinating. What you witnessed is real. The truth I've been trying to share is now visible to all. The microorganisms are real. The influence is real. And the beings behind it are real. She paused, her expression grave. We've just taken our first step toward freedom. But the mock collective has been planning this for years. The real battle is just beginning. The emergency broadcast system blared across Seoul as Hana stood in the command center that had been hastily established in the courthouse basement. It had been 3 days since her dramatic revelation in court, and the world was in chaos. But it was a chaos of awakening, not destruction. Citizens of Earth, Hana spoke into the camera, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. You've been under subtle alien influence. The mock collective has been altering your minds through contaminated water. What you're witnessing is freedom returning. The broadcast reached billions. In homes, offices, and public squares around the world, people gathered around screens to watch the woman they had once mocked as Crazy Karen. Now they hung on her every word. Taeho entered the room, his face showing both excitement and concern. "The countermeasure has reached water systems in Tokyo and Beijing," he reported. "Singapore and Sydney report first signs of clearing. European distribution begins in 1 hour." Hannah nodded. Their network had grown exponentially as minds cleared and people realized the truth. Scientists, government officials, military personnel, all joining the effort once freed from the mock influence. "Any sign of them?" Hannah asked. Taeho's expression darkened. "Yes, they're abandoning their human forms. Satellite imagery shows unusual activity in 12 major cities. On a large screen behind them, live footage showed what appeared to be humans suddenly contorting, their skin splitting to reveal something else beneath. The mock, no longer able to maintain their disguises as the countermeasure spread, were showing their true forms. They were tall, with iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Their movements were too fluid, too perfect to be human. Most disturbing were their eyes, large, multifaceted organs that captured light in ways that made them seem to glow from within. In New York, a news helicopter captured footage of 3 mock emerging from the United Nations building. In London, security cameras showed 5 more abandoning their human disguises in the underground. Similar reports came in from Moscow, Cairo, Rio de Janeiro. "They're retreating to their insertion points," said Judge Da-hyun, who had become one of Hannah's strongest allies. His eyes, now clear and focused, scanned multiple reports. "But they're destroying evidence as they go." Hannah wasn't surprised. They'd been planning this for years. They won't give up easily. Outside, the streets of Seoul were a mix of celebration and confusion. People embraced strangers, crying with relief as they realized how clouded their thoughts had been. Others sat in shock, trying to reconcile their actions of the past months with their newly cleared minds. Prosecutor Suk, now working alongside Hannah, entered with fresh intelligence. "We've identified their command center," she said, spreading maps across the table. "It's beneath Lake Siwa, the water reclamation project that was their cover for building an underwater facility." "That's where we need to go," Hannah said immediately. "That's where we'll find their communication equipment and possibly their way home." "It's too dangerous," Da-hyun argued. "Let the military handle this now." Hannah shook her head. "The military is still clearing their ranks of influenced personnel, and I understand the mock biology better than anyone. I need to see their facility." Before anyone could argue further, the building shook with a distant explosion. On the screens, they saw smoke rising from Seoul's central water treatment plant. "They're targeting our distribution points," Taeho said, checking reports flooding in. Similar explosions reported in Tokyo and Beijing. Hannah remained calm. "It's too late for them. The countermeasure is already in the water systems. They can't stop it now." She turned to address her growing team. "We need 2 task forces, one to secure remaining water treatment facilities worldwide, and another to join me at Lake Siwa." "Join you?" Suk looked concerned. "You're going personally?"